You know, in our justice system, there's this really powerful but super rarely used tool. Think of it like a judicial emergency brake. Today, we're going to dive into the case of In re Carter to figure out what it actually takes for a court to pull that lever. Let's get right into it. So let's just imagine for a second. You're right in the thick of a lawsuit, and the judge makes a ruling you think is just completely wrong. Like, this could wreck my whole case wrong. You know you can appeal when it's all over, but what can you do to stop it right now? That's the exact problem we're looking at today. All right, so this whole thing starts with a guy named Darnell Carter. He's in the U.S. Court of Federal Claims fighting over a tax refund, and things hit a major snag. The judge issued an order, and for Carter, it was something he felt he just couldn't wait to challenge. So what happened? Well, the judge basically told Mr. Carter, hey, you need to hand over the documents you filed with the IRS to prove we should even be hearing your case. Mr. Carter thought, whoa, no way. That's a total overstep. So he decided to try and get a higher court to jump in and stop that order dead in its tracks. Now, to do this, Mr. Carter reached for one of the most powerful and honestly unusual tools in the entire legal system. This is not your standard appeal, not even close. Think of it less like a regular tool and more like that big red emergency brake handle you see on a train. You just don't pull it unless it's a real crisis. So what is this thing called? It's a writ of prohibition. And what it does is it's an order from a higher court telling a lower court judge pretty much, stop, you cannot go any further with what you're doing. And as you can probably guess, higher courts are extremely hesitant to do this because they're literally interfering with a case while it's still happening. And look, this isn't just some loose guideline. It's a rock-solid rule. The Supreme Court itself called this thing a drastic and extraordinary remedy reserved for really extraordinary causes. I mean, they said extraordinary twice. They are not being subtle here at all about just how high that bar is set. Okay, so if you want to pull that emergency brake, you have to get through this super strict three-part test. First, you've got to prove there's absolutely no other way to fix the problem. None. Second, you have to show that your right to this relief isn't just a possibility, it's clear and indisputable. And third, even if you manage to clear those first two hurdles, the court still has to agree that, yeah, issuing this writ is the right thing to do. You gotta hit all three, or you're out.
So how did the Federal Circuit take this incredibly high standard and apply it to Mr. Carter's case? This is where all that legal theory gets real.
Well, it didn't take long for the court to see some major problems. Right away, they found that his petition failed on at least two of the three big requirements. For that first step, no other adequate means, they asked, does he have another way out? And the answer was, yep, he sure does. He can just wait until the case is over and then challenge the order on a regular appeal. And for that second step, the clear and indisputable right, the court basically said he just didn't prove it. And this right here is the absolute key. The fact that you can appeal at the end of a case is almost always considered an adequate means to get relief. The court was pretty much saying, look, we hear you. You have a time and a place to fight this order, but that time is not right now, in the middle of everything. Now, this might sound kind of harsh, right? Just a strict procedural rule. But there's a really, really important reason why courts protect this power so carefully. It actually gets to the very heart of how our entire justice system is designed to work. The whole logic here is about protecting the process itself. I mean, just think about it. If anyone could just run to a higher court every single time they disagreed with a judge, whether it's a tax case, a big government contract dispute, or some complicated patent trial, nothing would ever get done. Cases would just grind to a halt. So this super high standard, it prevents total chaos. It upholds the final judgment rule, a core principle that says appeals have to wait until a case is truly over. So once you understand that framework, the Federal Circuit's decision in Mr. Carter's case becomes, well, pretty easy to see coming. Let's look at how it all wrapped up and what the big lesson is here. The court's final order was super short and right to the point. Since Mr. Carter couldn't pass that really demanding three-part test, his request for the writ was simply denied. That meant the lower court's order could move forward. And that really brings us to our main takeaway. The legal system does have this ultimate failsafe, but it's basically behind glass that reads, break only in case of a true judicial catastrophe. For the vast majority of disagreements with a judge's decision, the proper path isn't to pull the emergency cord, but to wait for the final stop and take the appeal. As always, just a reminder that this is for educational and informational purposes. It is not legal advice. Thanks for joining us.